Unforgettable, uncensored, unforgivable. The Unspoken Podcast with Tom Albano, Nick Federa, and Nick Morgeson on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You are listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seats sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It's episode number 56. I'm Tom Albano, along with Nick Federa and Nick Morgeson. Guys, it has finally ended for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, they finally are. And if you missed our Left Unspoken about that, go check it out. It's really, I'd like to say, shock is the emotion that we're dealing with here.
We were stunned speechless. Let's say that.
Oh my God, I can't believe this actually happened. And now I guess you can go on Twitter and say hashtag Fly Eagles Fly. And you know what? I guess you get a lot of people singing, "We are the champions, my friends." Okay.
I would normally be mad, and I said this on the Left Unspoken. I would normally be mad because Giants fan, Eagles rivals, but God, it was an electric game, and we have plenty to talk about. We had Zig Fracassi of SiriusXM coming on later today. We're going to talk a lot about the Super Bowl with him, but let's go over some of the key points of the Super Bowl in a special, not a 2-minute drill, a 3-minute drill. So let's go. Clock is started. All right. So, guys, I think the main point from the game was basically the Eagles' defense came prepared, and the Patriots' offensive line just was not there. And they let Brady down, and it all came to a head in that fourth quarter, that Tom Brady getting sacked and fumbling the football.
You know what's so weird about this, actually, with this game, and we talked about this in the interview with Zig Fracassi, but I'll bring up a quick point that we took for the Jaguars were taken for granted by the Steelers, and I think that kind of carried over where the Pats kind of took the Eagles for granted in a sense.
They thought that Nick Foles wasn't going to be able to get the job done.
And by the way, bravo, give some claps to Nick Foles. Nick Foles actually played well, even though Tom Brady had over 400 plus yards, and I think he had 4 touchdowns.
It was the most offensive yardage in a Super Bowl, and Tom Brady, I think, broke a record for yardage as well.
He did, and it's just that the Eagles' defense was a little better. Alshon Jeffrey had a ridiculous game, and it just the offense and the defense were just one step quicker than the Patriots.
But I give all credit to Foles for playing as well as he did, but that doesn't change my opinion that either Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham should have gotten the MVP.
Well, guess what? At the very least, he is going to get paid, because either Foles is either going to have to get traded or he's going to get paid while sitting on the bench, because you got to have a situation now with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. That's the only downside for them. Meanwhile, you guys saying something, Nick?
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't think you can trade him, because the way that quarterbacks are a premium in the NFL. Right. So if for whatever reason Carson Wentz, which they said it takes like a full year or even 2 years to be completely healthy, he'll come back next year, but it takes a long time to be healthy. And I'll go to another situation in Minnesota with Sam Bradford and Teddy Bridgewater. Just looking at that situation with Case Keenum. So I think that he's going to...
In that Minnesota thing, they're all free agents.
Right, but I'm just saying that you're going to see Nick Foles probably make between $10 and $12 million as a backup quarterback, probably.
He's going to get paid that cash money, as you like to say, Tom.
Malcolm Butler did not play it down, and supposedly there's just all this drama going around, and then it got worse. Rob Gronkowski's house got robbed, and he was contemplating retirement. It's just insane in the Patriots locker room, and I cannot believe what we're going to see. That image of Tom Brady sitting on the field is just going to echo forever and ever. And by the way, guys, I was right. I told you from the beginning of the season they were going to lose in the freaking Super Bowl. Did I think it was going to get you against the Eagles? No, I had severe doubts, but my God, they proved me right.
Well, I'll say one
last. The lotto numbers are going to be?
Yeah, seriously. One last thing I'll say, and then we got to move on. But the Malcolm Butler situation, there was a lot of conflicting reports. Was he drunk? Was he out past curfew? Did he break rules violations? The last thing I'll say is, Bill Belichick, you're a moron, because you kept telling the American people who are watching the game of football that you just decided not to play him because it was the best for the game. No, it's not.
Sounds like the Cowboys when that guy got released early in the season, and then it came out like he did nothing wrong. It was like they still didn't resign him, but it was like for the best for the Cowboys. It's just unreal. By the way, guys, quickly, what were some of your favorite Super Bowl commercials? I think DeVito and the Eli
the M&Ms, the Dirty Dancing thing with Odell Beckham Jr.
Those two won the Super Bowl.
Those were the best. I couldn't believe what I was watching with the Dirty Dancing.
I'll also give credit to the Alexa app with the losing her voice.
Yeah, and David Harbour's Tide commercials.
Oh,
that
God.
confused the hell out of me, to be honest. I was like, wait a minute, this is the Old Spice music. Why am I seeing a Tide commercial?
The thing for the Echo, especially giving props to Gordon Ramsay, because now Gordon Ramsay has an app, a skill app rather, on the Amazon Echo devices. So that's great. But let's move on. We're going to move on quickly. We'll have more talk during the interview with Zig Fracassi later. But Jesus, the NBA trade deadline. It was insane yesterday. Like, what happened? Oh, my God. I think, you know what? I have something we have to start this off with. The Unspoken Podcast now takes a trip to the circus. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes,
you sure we didn't actually do that for the Browns and maybe just got lost?
No, I you know what? Tom's actually right. The Cleveland Cavaliers have taken a trip to the circus, and I was quite busy yesterday on our Twitter account at the UD Network, breaking a lot of news from the NBA world, a lot of it being the Cleveland Cavaliers. And when I saw a lot of these trades go down, some of them confused me. Some of them, like Tom and I were talking about yesterday, is it waving the white flag?
I think it is. I think this is the Cavaliers saying, okay, we give up. Celtics, you can go get killed by the Warriors.
Okay, so context is necessary. The Cavaliers yesterday traded away half their goddamn locker room.
Well, another context, just so people understand. There's 4 people on the roster that are left from the 2016 championship team. So it's J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, LeBron James, and Kevin Love. Those are the only guys that are left. And it's I can't remember the guy's name who reports for ESPN for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Slipping my name at the moment. But those were the core 4, basically, of the team back in 2016. But this team is basically falling apart. Now, what they're saying is that, oh, we're doing it to get younger. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not doing that to get younger. What guys did you bring in? You brought in Clarkson and Nance from the Lakers, who are pretty much bench guys.
For Isaiah Thomas.
Well,
right.
Well, Isaiah Thomas left Cleveland to go to the Lakers in that trade. But Isaiah Thomas has a weird situation going on because now we got to go back to when he was with the Celtics. He was making a playoff run, and he was up for a ridiculous like $150 to $170 million max deal. Then he gets hurt with the hip injury, goes down, not with the Celtics anymore, gets traded for Kyrie Irving, and basically was hurt, didn't play for most of the season, played 12 games with the Cavs, and now he's traded to the Lakers. So
it's just your last ditch effort to keep LeBron, your last ditch, to fight the Celtics, get control of the East, and this is what you do?
This is what you come up with?
Well,
I mean, you say it's waving the white flag, but they took on $50 million worth of guaranteed cap money in these trades alone. That doesn't sound like a white flag to me. That sounds like the last act of a desperate man.
Well, the way that the NBA works now is the only way you can get players is by taking in large amounts of money, but that could be in any sport. But at the same time, I don't really think they improved. I think they actually went the other direction.
I agree.
Because they don't have the wherewithal to build defensively. They can score. That's not their problem. Their problem is defense, and they don't play a lot of it. And that's how they got away with winning championships. They scored their way to the championships, not defensively. And that's why the Warriors have beat them the last 2 years, because the Warriors can score and they can play defense when necessary.
It's unbelievable. So I guess maybe they're trying to lure LeBron with money, but after all this drama, it's not going to work. In fact, I'm getting a feeling now they're not even going to make it to the finals. They're going to lose to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Final, or they're somehow going to get upset in the second round.
Now,
plus they've just given another team a way to sign 2 max players. They gave the Lakers the means, if they want to, if they feel they can, to sign LeBron James if he's interested.
well, I don't know if he's going to go to the Lakers. Now, a lot of the ESPN reporters are saying that he's going to stay in Cleveland, which I'm hard-pressed to believe at this point, because the situation is so bad there. And it seems like, and they brought up a good point yesterday, every player that plays with LeBron James gets worse when they come in to play with him. Have you noticed guys like Chris Bosh? Before he played with Chris Bosh was an all-star. He played at the top of his game, and by the time LeBron made it to Miami with Chris Bosh was a nobody. He basically did nothing, and then he got hurt, and then he couldn't play anymore.
Because LeBron is another one of them give me the ball players. Or, well, in LeBron's case, he is, of course, he is not just the player. He is the coach. He is the GM. He is everything.
You know what? The
Session guy as well.
You know what the sad part is? I could see I could see a little bit of Carmelo Anthony inside of LeBron James.
Oh, God. I can a little.
Because the reason I say it is because LeBron, the only thing that makes, well, I shouldn't say the only, there's a few things that make him way better than Carmelo. LeBron will pass the basketball, first of all. 2, LeBron is going to play defense. And 3, he's going to aggressively go after every rebound. But there are times when LeBron will say, I'm taking over the game. I'm not passing the basketball. I'm going to put up 50 or 60 points because I have to. And he doesn't care about everybody else. He's just looking at himself.
It's just, oh my God.
That's why I don't see him staying. He's going to go off to winter to try to, revitalize, try to stop Golden State, try to get around that Golden State problem. But then for Cleveland, it's going to be another rebuild, and it's going to be a lot longer than the 4 years without LeBron.
You're right. And it's just, there's a lot of teams rebuilding. It's not just, I don't even know if they're not going to classify it as a rebuild, but we're going to classify it as a rebuild because of the players they brought in. But I think you're right. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now that the Cavaliers don't make it to the finals this year. And I think that you can tape me, you can record me. As we're recording this, you can take that sound out when they don't make the finals. And I don't know. It's interesting. I think the white flag has been raised. And speaking of white flag being raised, do you think that the Knicks should wave the white flag also?
Yeah.
No, they're past that. Destroy the garden. No. Because I know Jim Dolan isn't to blame for Kristaps Porzingis' knee exploding, but I still feel like it's kind of his fault, even though it really isn't his fault.
Well,
God knows the guy has the business acumen of an electroshocked gorilla that's high on bath salts.
Well, I mean, combine that with the fact that the Rangers are basically waving the white flag and saying we're going to have to do a rebuild. I mean, good Lord, Madison Square Garden, it's become a toxic wasteland. It's like, stay away from this area.
Well, is that irony that we saw the report for the Rangers? We don't talk a whole lot of hockey, but we saw that they put someone on the block and that the Knicks now have the injury and they traded someone away. I can't remember the name of the player that they were holding on to. It was like,
but it's 2 James Dolan teams. So it's like, I get what Nick's trying to say. It's like, by logic, them not being prepared for these injuries, James Dolan is at fault.
Here's what I think, though, with the Knicks. The Porzingis injury was unfortunate. He's been much better. He was leading his team in every possible offensive category because there's no one else to score. There's no Melo anymore. So it's unfortunate. Now I think they're going to end up under 500 the rest of the season. And
I say goodbye this season and goodbye next season.
This is, you've heard of tank jobs, and we always talk about tank jobs. This is Tiananmen Square.
But tanking doesn't help them, though.
Yeah. It doesn't, but what else? What the hell else can you do?
Well, you need to try to
drink.
You need to try and lure free agents, but apparently New York is not the destination for NBA free agents anymore.
Well, I was just gonna say, come on, this is Jim Dolan. You really think he's going to do that?
It's a vicious cycle. It keeps going over and over and over again.
Death
You
by
can't
James
sign any good
Dolan.
free agents because this New York is not the basketball mecca it wasn't, because you can't get free agents. It keeps going around and around and around and around like the world's worst circle.
Right. And speaking of big men, now knowing the Knicks have a big problem, I guess we could talk about the Clippers a little bit and how DeAndre Jordan was up on the NBA trade deadline market. They're trying to get rid of him. They got rid of Blake Griffin earlier before the deadline to Detroit, and it seems like actually he's so far doing pretty well in Detroit with the Pistons.
Yeah, I was just going to say, speaking of tank jobs, the Clippers.
Yeah, really. And DeAndre Jordan was on the market. He's been on the market like the past 2 or 3 years. And they can't seem to trade him because his contract, he just signed a massive contract close to $100 million. But I don't know what the Clippers are doing at this point. As I said, Doc Rivers is going to lead his team with his own son, and they're just going to stink.
And then LeBron is going to join the Golden State Warriors, and then we're all going to quit.
What a freaking thing going on in the NBA. This is insanity. It's like I'm starting to get some interest, even though, the Knicks have to fuck up, basically, with Porzingis now being out. But, God, this is something. And you know what else was something, guys? When Zig Fracassi of SiriusXM stopped by and we got to talk to him all about the Super Bowl. We talked about things from like what a freaking catch is with the 2 catch situations that occurred to what's going on in the Patriots locker room. It was absolutely insane, and we got a lot of good insight from Zig.
We did, and the phrase wacky tobacco was used. And
oh my God, that was great. And also he talks to us about what he thinks about the Malcolm Butler situation.
And I gave him a good solution as to maybe we can find a solution for this catch thing. So, you know what? Let's take it to the interview with Zig now. Joining us now on the Unspoken Podcast is Zig Fracassi of SiriusXM Radio. And here's something special. He was there in Minneapolis covering the Super Bowl. So, Zig, thank you for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure, guys, except I wasn't there, but I was moderating the Super Bowl pop-up channel that we had for NFL radio. So I guess in some ways I was, because I was, promoting all the different channels that we had there in Minneapolis. But good to be with you.
Let's start with one situation off the bat, Zig, and everyone wants to know the answer to this. Why were Bill Belichick and the Patriots trying to keep so quiet on Malcolm Butler not playing in the Super Bowl?
Boy, probably need Magnum PI to uncover the case there, because the Patriots are always so secretive when it comes to this stuff. In fact, I guess he released a statement today basically saying that, the things that were reported about him, apparently he missed a team plane, he had missed curfew, he went to concerts, he was, doing marijuana, all this other stuff. He issued the statement that he didn't do any of that. So, with the Patriots, you're never going to get, I guess, a true answer out of Belichick or anybody for that matter. My hunch would be maybe there was a little bit of truth to what happened, but I think the bottom line was, Malcolm Butler probably just didn't, do the things that they wanted him to do, even though he started all the games. Maybe maybe it was punishment for him, complaining about his contract or whatever, but it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, if there were some deep, dark secrets going on, and if Belichick felt compelled to do so to punish him, fine, but, it cost your team the game. He's arguably their best defensive back, and if you wonder if they would have had him out there, I mean, the Eagles probably still would have scored some points, but, maybe they would have had a better chance. So, long answer to your question, only Bill Belichick and the Patriots know what happened with Malcolm Butler. He did issue the statement saying that none of this stuff that was reported about him is true.
Now, something interesting I want to follow up with. I don't know if you saw it on social media that Tom Brady made a statement. He liked it on Instagram. Do you see anything weird with Tom Brady making that comment on Instagram at all?
I honestly didn't see it, but Tom Brady is a guy who's always going to defend his teammates. He's always going to be someone who looks out for the common good of the team. So people who criticize him, I just think it's because they're jealous of all the success that he's had and all the success the Patriots had. So honestly, I didn't see it, but I'm sure if it was supporting Malcolm, then that's just Tom being Tom, because for all the superstar status and all the notoriety he gets, Tom Brady still thinks of himself as a team guy who was selected selected 199th overall in the draft back in '99.
Now, Zig, moving on to the analysis of the game itself, what do you think was the X factor that allowed the Eagles to win the game?
The X factors obviously was the fact that New England had no pass rush. So Nick Foles, had a clean pocket most of the night. They utilized the RPO, the run pass option, to perfection. So I think those were some keys. Obviously, LeGarrette Blount wanting to send a message to his former team, you should have kept me around, because blunt force trauma, was in full view on Sunday. And Corey Clement, a young man who did more damage out of the backfield receiving the ball than he did as far as rushing it. Defensively, obviously New England had over 600 yards offense. Brady had over 500 passing, so it wasn't Philadelphia's defense anything special there. I just think it became one of those games where, you want a high-scoring, high yardage, high excitement, but you needed your defense to make the play. In Philadelphia, they essentially made one more play defensively than New England did, and that was that sack towards the end of the game where Barnett ultimately recovered the ball. So New England had some nice things going offensively for them. I think Philadelphia was just able to win in a shootout, and they executed that one key play defensively because New England was moving the ball all night long. It was a fabulously entertaining game, but I think in the end, New England's defensive warts showed up, and Philadelphia didn't play great defense, but theirs was the most opportunistic when it had to be on Sunday night.
Now, talking about the AFC, when it comes to the playoffs this year, we said that the Steelers may have been a little overconfident looking past the Jaguars. The Jaguars may have looked past the Patriots. Would you say the Patriots took the Eagles for granted?
Oh, I don't know how you could. To that point, I think you're right. I think the Steelers looked past the Jaguars. I don't think there's any question about that, because you heard Mike Mitchell and some of the other guys saying, we'll get New England again. Well, you didn't tell Jacksonville that, and they did a number on Pittsburgh. I think Jacksonville let off the gas against New England. I thought the Jaguars pounded them for the good first portion of that first half there, and then for whatever reason, Marone went conservative and you leave a crack open. I don't think there's any way New England could have looked past Philadelphia. I think New England, this isn't one of their vintage teams this year. I think there was some truth, to what was reported about some friction amongst the team. They didn't have a pass rusher all year long. I think, Belichick seeing maybe a little bit closer to the end here, letting both of his coordinators take head coaching jobs. He prepared them unlike past years. And, you look at a team like Philadelphia, looking for their first title in almost 60 years. I would hope not. New England, is this so-called dynasty and all that. Each opponent brought themselves different challenges. You look at these last couple of Super Bowls New England won. I thought Seattle handed them the one out in Arizona a few years ago. Last year, Atlanta handed them the one last year in Houston, because I thought the Falcons dominated that game. But again, like Jacksonville didn't do against the Patriots, the Falcons didn't put the pedal to the metal and blow New England out. So, New England's an excellent team, but I don't think they're that good enough where you can look past anybody. So I think Philadelphia just simply out-executed them, had a better game plan. They didn't step off the gas, where New England, I think, benefited from Seattle and Atlanta in the two more Super Bowls that they won recently.
Looking at the way Super Bowls are won, you have to look at the coach and some of the gutsy plays that they bring along. Now, do you think Doug Peterson's game plan worked well? And do you think that was a gutsy call, like on the 2-point conversion call? Because that could have cost them the game in a sense.
Oh, yeah. You look like a genius when it works. You look like a moron if it doesn't. Apparently, both teams' kicking games were having issues with the logos. So all of a sudden, the game's indoors and everything like that, and you're wondering, well, geez, what's so bad about that? Well, if you're kicking on the logo, then you don't have good traction. You might as well just be playing on ice, for goodness sake. So I think that's where the trepidation set in. And ultimately, they had to do the 2-point conversion. I thought that play at the end of the half was absolute balls. Let's face it. To be able to call the sort of the wildcat with the pass option there, even though it appeared as though Foles was a little bit off the line of scrimmage, and I think it was Matt Chatham, the former Patriot, who's analyst for Nesson, first that brought that up to everybody, that play was illegal, but it was a judgment call, I guess, in terms of how the officials saw it. So, but back to your point, Peterson, he took risks all year long. You're thinking, well, they're up 3 late in the game, or they're up 3 at this particular point, whatever game it was during the season. Well, they'll just run the ball and play it safe. No. You've got enough confidence in that offensive line. You've got enough confidence in your quarterback. You've got the brain trust to help call these plays. I thought Philadelphia called a brilliant game, and they're worthy of being Super Bowl champions as far as I'm concerned.
So, do you think that the sports media may have unfairly branded the Eagles as an underdog? Were they just timely? Were they lucky? What was it?
Well, the odds makers are the ones that actually made them the underdogs because, obviously when the point spreads come out of Vegas, you figure Philadelphia, all right, because there was nothing, absolutely nothing to make one wonder, well, geez, can the Philadelphia Eagles get through the playoffs? Because before the playoffs started, Nick Foles didn't do a whole lot of anything down the stretch. Now, you could make the argument, well, they had everything clinched. They're not showing all their plays and all this and that. I can get that, but geez, I'd want my quarterback to at least look the part, and he didn't. So you figure you're without your franchise quarterback, who should be the MVP as far as I'm concerned. I thought he should have been. So you're playing your first game against the defending NFC champs, who won on the road in LA, fairly tough environment, and the Falcons quarterback just happens to be a Philadelphia native, so he's going to play well in front of his home folks. Well, that didn't happen. So now you're playing Minnesota, who is arguably the best defense in the NFL. You've got another hot quarterback in Keenum. So, all right, well, Philadelphia played enough defense in the division playoff game. There's no way they can do it again because Keenum looks so good, against the Saints in the playoffs. Well, Philadelphia ratcheted up the game plan. They were brilliant defensively. Nick Foles in that game, I thought for a second Carson Wentz was back because he looked like Carson Wentz out there, but it was Foles doing such a great job. You're going to make the Eagles an underdog in the Super Bowl because you're playing against Brady and Belichick. They've been to that point in their era 7 times. The Patriots had been there 9 times prior as a franchise. Obviously, you're going to make them the underdog once again. You're going to have guys, the Lane Johnsons, the Chris Longs, to have some fun with this, with the dog masks. None of us are in the locker room per se, what, they're all meeting about and everything, but trust me, if you're slighted, you're going to use that to motivation. So the Eagles played the underdog card to the hilt. So I think because their franchise quarterback being out and who hadn't showed anything, as I said, before the playoffs, you're also without your starting left tackle, your starting middle linebacker. So they had big-time injuries, but the Eagles showed, I don't think they were lucky at all. I think they just executed great game plans. They beat the favored teams. Granted, they had the home field advantage to do so. I think just everything fell into the right place. And when Nick Foles played as well as he did in the NFC Championship game, I think that opened eyes. And that's where I thought, I picked New England to win the Super Bowl, but I thought Philly would have a real good chance to do so. And they got the job done. And again, they're worthy champions.
Now, looking at the Nick Foles situation and how he handled the playoffs, and do you really think he faced a lot of pressure like everyone was saying, or do you think that he was a little cooler and calmer considering he's been through the situation once?
I think, I think you brought up something good there. Foles was at a point where he was going to retire because he went from that high, that plateau, to the point where everybody figured him out. Then he winds up with the Rams, where ironically he played with Keenum, so that was kind of cool to see those two go at it in the NFC Championship game. Then he said basically the only team he was going to come back to was the Kansas City Chiefs because his former coach Andy Reid was there. So I think what had happened was that he bonded extremely well with Carson Wentz because I think they're both men of not only impeccable abilities, but there's something spiritual with them. And in fact, I think Nick Foles, once he's done playing, may become a minister. That's how serious he is with his faith. So you have that relationship. You have a former quarterback as your head coach. You have a former quarterback, Frank Reich, who, by the way, led the greatest college comeback in history and the greatest pro comeback in history as your offensive coordinator. So I think all of these dynamics played, plus maturity, plus being down to now to the point where I've got a chance to do really something special. I think it all just came in to focus. And like I said, from that NFC Championship game on, Nick Foles opened eyes, and I think a lot of that went into it. That's why he played so brilliantly in the Super Bowl. I don't think there's anything fluky about it. Now, there's a lot of agenda-setting media that's saying, well, the Eagles could trade Nick Foles and get a lot for him. Truth of the matter is they don't know if Carson Wentz is going to be ready for the start of next year. He says he's going to be, but you know as well as anybody, these athletes are full of a lot of bravado, a lot of hype, a lot of, maybe false pretense, because it takes an athlete easily a year and a half, maybe 2 years before they're fully recovered from that ACL type of injury. So if I'm the Eagles, I already have Foles under contract. There's no way I'm letting him go because I need insurance in case Carson Wentz isn't ready to start 2018.
Now, moving back to analyzing the game a little bit more, I'd like to ask you, what do you think their intent was, meaning the Eagles and the Patriots, with all these trick plays, meaning Nick Foles being the only quarterback in the Super Bowl to throw for a touchdown and catch a touchdown pass? What was with all those trick plays?
Well, let's not forget the Patriots tried one early in the second quarter there where Amendola threw a perfect pass. Tom Brady didn't look like Randy Moss on that receiving play there. So basically, at any time, at that particular point in the game, the Patriots offense wasn't doing anything. So sometimes I think what you have to do is shake up the apple cart. If I'm Josh McDaniels, you got to figure, you know what? We're not doing much with the so-called conventional offense, so let's put some razzle-dazzle in there. So New England tried it, and I think the idea there, and on both sides too, guys, is to loosen up the defense. Oh, wow, they tried this. We didn't anticipate that. Whereas the Eagles, I think they've been doing more of this, throughout the season. In fact, I think that pass they used came from a different game earlier in the year or something like that, or from a different team's game, I think they said it was. So basically, you're just trying to shake up the apple cart. In New England's case, trying to just get them going, and in Philadelphia's case, you already got good rhythm, but you know what? They may be looking for a tendency here. They may be looking to go to Jeffrey on this particular route, or looked at Ertz. So you know what? Let's throw them a curveball, because you figure at that particular time when they tried that pass, it's third and short. Well, you figure that maybe they run it up the middle for Blunt to try to milk the clock that way. That's where you throw a team off a loop, and I thought what Philly did there was brilliant.
After watching the Zach Ertz situation play out with the catch and the rolling around on the ground, what would you define as a catch? Because we can't seem to figure out what a catch is.
Neither can the NFL.
I think the four of us probably have four different opinions on what a catch is. When I was, I'm probably a little bit older than you guys, so I always was taught if you came down and caught the ball and did two steps, aka a football move, then that constituted a catch. And that, like, if you landed on the ground, then the ground can't cause a fumble. That's, I think, what I was always taught, and I'm sure, older fans might do that. Now, that Ertz play, I guess in some ways, mirrored the Jesse James play in that Pittsburgh-New England game where they thought they had the winning score, but they ruled it as not able to survive the ground, which to me is like, what? And then, of course, the Clement play where it looked as though he had his left step down, the second one came down, but the ball looked like it was coming out. And on that play, everybody's killing Collinsworth for saying that should have been a no catch. Well, you look at it, I can see the argument for not having a catch. So I think they're going to have to determine, and the commissioner made his comments on that abundantly clear at his State of the Game address this week, guys, is that you need to simplify this. What is a catch? And do you use the parameters that I just laid out? You catch the ball, you take two steps, aka a football move, and then when you go to the ground can't cause a fumble. I think sometimes we're in this era where, some of these people maybe who never played the game or get their egos built up with the titles they have, they tend to complicate the easy. Make it easy so not only do the players understand, but the media understands, the fans understand what is a catch. Make it clear, make it easy, and move on with it.
I mean, we have the XFL on the day of the Super Bowl taking shots at the NFL about what a catch is, taking into consideration the contradictory calls, the fact that they need to make it simpler, how it almost changed the Super Bowl. Are we going to have to lock Goodell and a bunch of other NFL execs in a room and say, no one is leaving the room until we have a pure definition of what a catch is?
You know what? That sounds like a great idea. I think the next time I talk to Goodell, I'll have to mention that. But in all seriousness, Roger also made the point that he had receivers and Hall of Famers in a room with him, and they showed, I think he said like over 150 different clips, and the opinions differed on what a catch was or wasn't. So I think what has to happen in this off season somehow, get a Jerry Rice in there, get a Tim Brown, get a Michael Irvin, these type of receivers, and then maybe a Larry Fitzgerald or a Julio Jones. Get their opinion on what a catch should be and all that. And like I said, just simplify it. I mean, when things are made complicated that should be easy, to me, that's ego speaking. These are some of these guys that have their titles now try to, set their own agenda and, have people talking about what should be something easy. So I think this needs to be pounded out, over the next few months. And then hopefully it gets passed into legislation when the NFL owners meetings roll around.
I'm sure you've seen all the, frankly, Romanesque celebration that's going on in the aftermath of Philly winning the Super Bowl. I need to ask, what's your reaction to the Eagles' entire fan base just losing their damn minds?
Well, this is nothing new. This has gone on in a lot of different cities, and not just for Super Bowls. You've seen it with World Series, you've seen it with Stanley Cups, you've seen it with NBA and all that. Again, it's one of those things where it doesn't look good. Then people can say, well, it's Philadelphia, so you should expect it. But you know what? There's a lot of good fans there. But more and more, I think and not just there. I mean, New York, Boston, D.C. I mean, you see boorish behavior everywhere. And I think, again, I'm not going to get into a society discussion here, but I think because you have, these high-tech phones now that all have cameras where you can take pictures, you can have your friends take pictures of you acting like a moron. And I think there's a culture that exists out there. Hey, look at me. I'm going to be all over Twitter. I'm going to be all over Facebook. So I get that attention there. And then I think in turn, if you see a bunch of people act like a bunch of jackasses, then you're going to label, whether it's Philly, Boston, New York, yeah, they're all jackasses. Well, there's a fair amount of them that aren't, but there's also a fair amount that are. So I'm not sure it indicts Philly anymore. I just think it's more of a problem of people thinking that, that they can get away with stuff and, get their 15 minutes of fame by acting like a fool.
Now, post-game, as the clock counted down to 0, we saw in the aftermath, it appeared that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they didn't shake Nick Foles' hand and they just walked away. What's your reaction to that?
Well, Belichick actually had a very nice embrace with Peterson, so that was good to see. And then again, you got to go by with what NBC is showing you at that particular point. So you're kind of at their mercy of what they want you to see. Now, does it give a bad look? I'm sure it does. But I'm sure at the same time, a lot of those, a lot of the Patriots players probably had embraces. I'm sure a lot of them probably congratulated Long and LeGarrette Blount well because there was a teammate last year. Then, we just talked about social media. There was a thing that surfaced, at least it was on my feed, I saw Tom Brady have a conversation with Brandon Graham, congratulating him. So, I guess it looks like bad sportsmanship, but at the same time, you've got all these media down there, you've got families coming in, and if you've just lost the game, do you really want to be out there while the other team's celebrating? So I guess it has a bad look, but again, I think sometimes the TV cameras kind of create that type of perception because none of us saw whether all these other guys were embraced or anything. So I'm kind of neutral on that topic.
I have to ask, Zig, because I've been turning this over in my mind for the last, let's say, 48 hours. Now, what's your reaction to Foles being named the MVP?
I have no problem with it. I think he played the game of his life. Again, to what we talked about earlier, if you would have told me after the Eagles were shut out by Dallas in a meaningless game, the season finale, that Nick Foles would have been MVP, I would have told you, stop smoking the wacky tobacco, because there was nothing there that would suggest that he would do that. But again, as he got more acclimated over time, he felt more confident with the game plan. I thought, again, his championship game was maybe a good preview of what we were going to see. And the fact you throw almost 400 yards in the biggest game of your life for a franchise that had not won an NFL championship in almost 60 years, I'd love him. Hollywood would have a tough time writing a better script than that. I thought he was quite deserving of MVP.
So what do you think Philadelphia does next year with the quarterback situation? I mean, you have the guy who helped lead you to the #1 seed and the positioning to get into the promised land, and then you got the guy who was named Super Bowl MVP.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think what's going to depend on is obviously once, say, training camp rolls around, how healthy is Carson Wentz? Is he at the point where he feels confident enough to start, being able to take the snaps and obviously do what the quarterbacks do? So I think the only answer to that would be they got to give this time. They already have him under contract for next year. So technically Philadelphia doesn't have to do anything. And Nick Foles, I think, is one of these kind of guys. He's not going to rock the boat. Like I mentioned, he and Carson Wentz, I think, have become very close friends. So I think if I'm Howie Roseman, the GM, and then Peterson, the coach, I'm not letting this guy go unless I'm totally convinced of two things. One, Carson Wentz is completely healthy, and two, maybe there's another option out there via draft, via free agency, whatever the case may be. Do I have another quarterback that's going to come in and do what we want to do as an offense to kind of simulate what Wentz and Foles did? I'm not sure that's available. And again, because Wentz with the knee, I don't think Nick Foles is going anywhere, guys, to be perfectly honest.
Looking at the media and looking at podcasting and looking at other forms of media, it could be the greatest thing in the world to be in it, or it could be a curse being in the media. Do you think Rob Gronkowski really will retire? And did the Patriots kind of cross the line in the sense of possibly leaking his retirement conversation?
Well, it's a valid question. Unfortunately, the poor guy just had his home burglarized while he was away for the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that's, finding out who did this may be the most important thing for him. But, some have speculated that, well, it's just simply a contract ploy that he wants to be paid his best tight end in the game, or it's definitely in the top 2 or 3. I tend to think that the guy's pretty serious about it. You got to remember, he had a concussion this past couple months. He got laid out pretty big in that game against Jacksonville. So, you start thinking about that and head injuries and CTE. Plus, he's also had issues with his back. In fact, when he came out for the NFL draft, there was a lot of concern about whether he would even be drafted simply because of back issues that he had in Arizona. He's had other ailments throughout his career. And from what he has said, he hasn't even spent his NFL money, his contract money. He's lived off his signing bonus because, beneath goof and beneath the party animal, seems as though Rob Gronkowski is a very sharp guy and is surrounded by his brothers that look out for him quite a bit. So it wouldn't shock me if Gronk decided to hang it up. It would not at all. Nor at the same time, it would surprise me if he came back and played 3 or 4 more years. I don't think he wanted to answer the question because, quite honestly, I don't think he knows the answer to it. I think some in the media, they either got to have the scoop or, they're smarter than everybody else. I've been in this for quite a while, and I would just say, you know what? These people make their own determinations. You can offer your opinion, needless to say, whether he should come back or not, or whether he should play or not, but it's ultimately up to that player or that team and what they want to do. So, like I say, I don't think it would shock me either way with Gronk if he did decide to retire or if he came back and played 3 or 4 more years.
Last question, Zig. Considering the Gronk situation, considering all the talk about tension in the Patriots locker room, what do you envision this offseason being for the New England Patriots?
Wow, it's a great question. Gosh, I had thought maybe if they had won, maybe you see Brady and Belichick both right off into the sunset and they start completely from scratch, and that obviously didn't happen. Belichick, I think, stated already that he is going to come back next year. Brady looks like he's going to come back. Although I would also point out, for as many yards as he threw in the Super Bowl, it seemed as though he still may have been bothered by his hand because it seemed as though he was short on quite a few passes. Having said that, obviously you need to replace both coordinators. So, there's talk that they may bring in Schiano to run the defense, although Jones, I think the guy's name is very highly thought of. Brian Jones, I think his name is very highly thought of assistant. So I don't know if Belichick's going to promote him or not. So obviously you're going to need to, take care of both coordinators. I don't think there's any doubt that they need to address the defensive line because they got absolutely no pass rush. I think Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator for the balance of the season, hit a lot of defensive deficiencies, most notably a lack of pass rush and at times no run defense. So they definitely need to shore that area up. Other than that, I think the offensive line got better as the season wore on, although you got to wonder, about Nate Solder's future and some people they need to look at there. If Gronk did retire, obviously then you're looking at tight end. And then, you've got hopefully Edelman, the one guy forgotten in all this, Julian Edelman, who they were, lost early in the season and they, New England can't come back from that. Well, they got to the Super Bowl, so it shows you how well coached and offense that they have. So Edelman's return, I think, will be big. How they settle the coordinators, but obviously I think they're going to go big in the draft, maybe even free agency because they spent the money on Gilmore this past year. Nobody ever saw New England spending big bucks on a big ticket free agent. So they shocked everybody there. They might do that again, whoever's out in free agency. So I think some additions on defense, Edelman's return, settling the coordinators. New England, I think, will be right there again, guys, because as long as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are your coach and quarterback, you're guaranteed, I would say, playoffs and then run at the Super Bowl. That's how brilliant these guys have been the last 17, 18 years.
We've been talking to Zig Fracassi of SiriusXM Radio. Zig, thank you so much for coming on.
Guys, anytime, man. Good being with you.
Thanks, Zig.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Zig. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Gentlemen, now that the interview with Zig is over, we have the best 4 words of February coming up. No, it is not I love you, darling. No, it is not Happy President's Day. Even though that's only 3 words.
No, it's not Groundhog in my yard.
No, it's not Happy Birthday, George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. You know what it is? Pitchers and Catchers Report. Yes.
Woo!
Back. Now that football is done, it's time for the 2nd annual Unspoken Podcast MLB Preview. So let's just get right into it, guys. We're going to start off with the NL West. We got 30 teams to cover over the next 6 to 7 weeks. We got a lot of baseball to talk about. Guys, I'm so happy baseball is back.
Oh, yeah.
We needed it after the goddamn dumpster fire of the NFL season and all the shit we've had to talk about. To actually have to talk about baseball is quite relaxing. And even that, because all these free agents are still, as of this recording, remain unsigned. It's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Definitely. So let's start with the NL West. Let's take it first to the San Francisco Giants. So, what have the Giants done this offseason? Well, Matt Moore has been traded. They've acquired Andrew McCutchen. They have Evan Longoria now. They re-signed Nick Hundley. They traded away Christian Arroyo and Denard Span. They avoided arbitration with Joe Panic. Guys, and they signed Austin Jackson to a 2-year deal about a month ago. So, guys, what do you think of the Giants?
I don't know if getting Longoria and McCutchen and Austin Jackson counts as going for it, though. It's definitely improvement, but I don't know if it's going for it.
I don't know if it, like Nick said, I kind of am in partial agreement that I think the Andrew McCutchen move is a good one. Do I think it's going to blast them all the way to the top where the Dodgers are? No. And Evan Longoria needs to reprove himself at third base because he's been injured the past 2 years. And also, this is a tougher situation for Longoria because he can't DH in San Francisco. So now he's going to have to play third base every day, and that could affect his health. Now, looking at other positions, I like Brandon Belt at first. Posey's a little older now at the catcher position, but he's obviously your mainstay. Mm-hmm. Hunter Pence is what?
I was going to say, don't you have Madison Bumgarner still pitching?
Yes. No, but I'm just going around the diamond. Basically, Hunter Pence is back from injury. Austin Jackson, I'm not a fan of in center. He was a Yankee prospect, by the way.
That's right, I remember.
Yes. Back in the day, he was.
But I do like their pitching rotation if it's healthy. That's the key word. Madison Bumgarner is your ace. Obviously, Cueto, I'm not too high on. Samardzija's kind of really a fourth starter, not a third, but that's what they're projecting on the depth chart. So it's question marks right now.
Plus, they're coming off their worst season in 33 years. So you got a lot to improve on.
Right.
I don't know if the pieces that they added can actually fix, because a lot of this hinges on the fact, can you get a healthy full season out of Madison Bumgarner? Because last year he went 4-9 with a 3.32 ERA in 17 starts.
And when he's healthy, he's your Cy Young Award winner almost. And also, just you were bringing up the record, 64-98 last year. You're going nowhere at 64-98. So do I think they're going to improve? Yes, because the veteran presence is going to help them. But I don't think they have enough power. They need power. That was their struggle last year.
That was one of their struggles. Injuries was also a big thing. Here's the thing. I think, it's weird. They have Madison Bumgarner basically as their big key starter, and they've acquired Evan Longoria and Andrew McCutchen. Now, of course, the every other year thing is kind of over in San Francisco.
It's over.
This is I like what you guys were saying, because it is an improvement, but it is still at the end of the day trying to rebuild the franchise. It's not going to be a playoff team, I don't think. It's going to take a lot of work for this team.
Do I think they're going to be 64-98 this coming year? No, but I think maybe 75, maybe 80 wins is probably where they will probably be around.
Probably, I can see that.
Well, there's nowhere to go but up. But this team could have gotten they could have made the jump to hyperspace if they had gotten Giancarlo Stanton like they were going to.
I think that this actually would have been a good team for you, Darvish, believe it or not. I think that would have been a good fit. It's just that they don't want to spend the money because they've already spent the money on Bumgarner and others.
Right. So now, guys, let's move on to the San Diego Padres. Not too far for the San Francisco Giants. So MLB winter meetings, they acquired Chase Headley once again. Now a Padre, trading away Jabari Blush, the Yankees. The Padres also acquired Brian Mitchell, and the Padres traded Brian Schimpf to the Rays for minor leaguer Deion Tansel. So not really a lot going on in San Diego. It's same as it ever was.
Well, I think that their best players, you got to look at their roster. Will Myers, former Tampa Bay prospect, playing first. He had a really good season. I think he had close to 35, 40 home runs, I think, playing in Petco Park. And yeah, Freddie Galvis is a big prospect, I think, that they traded for from the Phillies. And Chase Headley, obviously, that was a Yankees salary dump move. And
Headley's got a great bat. It's just in the field, he just was not too well at third base, at least not what he once was.
He was too streaky with the Yankees. I'm just surprised more than anything that the Padres were willing to take that on. But they were at 71 and 91 this past season. So honestly, I think because the offer, as we record this, the offer that they made to Eric Hosmer is still out there. If he accepts it, does this team standing improve in your eyes?
I mean, I think it would improve, but Eric Hosmer's one person. One person is not going to resolve, a mediocre team like this. Not in the sport of baseball. You can't do that.
I don't think it's an improvement, and I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, 7+ years, and I'm assuming that's probably going to be close to 170, 180 million if I had to take a guess.
Ridiculous.
And first of all, that's going to compromise the money, the budget they have, because they're going to have to spend it on Hosmer. I think they only spend like 70 to 90 million a year. They're not like the Yankees where they have money to spend. And Hosmer, which again, a nice bat, he's turned into a Gold Glove first baseman, but he strikes out a lot. Eric Hosmer, if you think about it, is kind of like the old man's Ryan Howard, where basically he'll hit you your home runs, but he'll strike out close to 180 to 200 times. So is it an improvement? Yes, but at the same time, it's not. And I think one of their best moves that they made so far was retaining Brad Hand, their closer.
Yeah, because bullpen help is really at a premium, and we'll see when we go on to the Rockies later in the segment how much they paid to get their bullpen better.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what to think about the Padres, except even if they do get Eric Hosmer, it's like same as it ever was, where they're going to be struggling basically in baseball purgatory.
I think that the amount of wins that they had last year is probably about where they're going to be again. So
not a little lower, I feel.
Maybe even a little lower, but I'll say somewhere between 60 and 70 wins is probably where they're going to be.
Probably.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'd say I'd be a little generous and say 70 to 75, but 75 is only like if maybe they had Hosmer and it's a really good year. So I just don't know. Let's go to Arizona, guys. So what's happened with the Diamondbacks this offseason? Well, first of all, last season they actually made the playoffs and actually won the wild card game, so good on them. But they no longer have JD Martinez, who is now a free agent, and as of this recording, still is a free agent. They traded Curtis Taylor to Tampa Bay for Brad Boxberger. They failed to tender a contract offer to J.J. Hoover and T.J. McFarland. They claimed Henry Owens off of waivers from Boston. And, I mean, I still like what Arizona has when it comes to likes of Paul Goldschmidt, Jake Lamb, Brandon Drury, David Peralta, AJ Pollock.
Don't forget Alex Avila. They signed him.
Right, Alex Avila as well at catcher. And actually, they also have J.R. Murphy as a catcher.
So
they got John Ryan Murphy.
I still like Arizona. I still feel like can they be the top of the top? It's going to be a struggle. But I still like, they're still a fun team to watch.
The core of that team is intact, but JD Martinez really did give them a boost, the boost that they needed to go as far as they did in the playoffs. And without him, I wonder what they can do.
Right, he was the big power need over there, and now they've lost that with free agency.
Well, looking at this team, and I'm not as worried about the offense for the Diamondbacks. I'm more worried about the starting rotation and Zach Greinke, which the Diamondbacks paid over $200 million for this guy. And he can't seem to win in a Diamondbacks uniform. He can't win in any uniform, to be honest. And you know what? Robbie Ray being second as the projected rotation guy when he was a bullpen guy last year. And just looking at the rest of his rotation, it's not
Taijuan Walker. There's Shelby Miller.
And you know what? He should really be the one, not Greinke. I think Corbin is more of a... I don't know. Just Greinke confuses me because
I don't know where you would place Corbin, but I will say that some people tend to overlook him because Corbin can be a good pitcher.
He is.
We were hearing his name in trade talks with the Yankees that obviously never came to fruition, but the kid's got talent. That's why the Yankees were interested in him.
Right. And Jake Lamb, also a big big performer on this team last year. JD Martinez, which they're going to miss, who had 40 plus home runs and 120 RBIs, and he hit like close to 300. And they're going to miss that bat. I mean, they have Paul Goldschmidt, who is, I think, in the top 5 in MVP voting this past season.
Really underrated as a player, I think.
I was gonna say, how do more people not like Paul Goldschmidt? He's insane as a player.
I mean, I think what's going to happen, and if we decide to do just a normal fantasy league where we're just seeing who's stats and stuff, I think Paul Goldschmidt will go high as a top 5 first baseman.
He always tends to go high in fantasy drafts, especially those dynasty drafts that, the dynasty leagues that last for years. Guys, what are your projections for Arizona wins? I think they get above just above 500. They get like around 85, 86.
Well, I'd say they finish second in the NL in the division, and they do 3 games worse than they did last year.
Well, they were 93 and 69 last season. As you said, they were a wild card berth. They won, and I think they gave the Dodgers a run for their money in that NLCS. Excuse me. And you know what? It's tough to call because, like you said, sometimes you can only go up or you can really only go down because you're 93 and 69. It's hard to go way up. The next step for them would be to win the division, but the Dodgers are going to win the division. So I think they're going to be right where they are.
So now let's go to the team that you mentioned, Nick, earlier, the Colorado Rockies. So take it from here, Nick, because this is something you had a thing to say about.
So let's take a look at what they added. So they added Wade Davis, Brian Shaw, and catcher Chris Iannetta. So they signed Shaw for $27 million for 3 years. They gave Wade Davis 3 years at $52 million and brought back Jake McGee on $27 million for 3 years. That is a metric butt ton of money to be spent on the bullpen.
Definitely. I mean, they still got, the likes of Arenado, Desmond, LeMahieu, and Trevor Story leading their infield, and Charlie Blackmon on the outfield. I mean, I think it's a fine team. It's just, the throwing all this money at Wade Davis. And I don't know how you feel about that, all this money going to Davis.
Well, the Wade Davis situation, I think he was with the Cubs last year, and he was on the World Series team when they won. I don't know. I mean, he's a great pitcher. Would I say he's a solid top 5 closer? Yeah, he probably fits in that category. He's had a ton of saves. But that's, like Nick said, that's a metric fuck ton of money to give a closer who's not Mariano Rivera, who's not Trevor Hoffman back in the day. And you can't trust it, that you have to be able to trust him to come in and close your games and close 95% on saves. So it's going to be interesting to see. And he's in Colorado. So
yeah,
it's going to help them.
Plus, you don't have Jonathan Lucroy anymore. You don't have Carlos Gonzalez. I mean, the lineup's taking a hit in order to bolster the bullpen. You weakened one area in order to strengthen another.
Right. Although, do I think it could have been worse? Absolutely. But I mean, for the Colorado, they got to do something now. I mean, next year, DJ LeMahieu's contract's up. Next year, DJ LeMahieu is going to be a free agent. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him. And I don't know what's going on with Nolan Arenado and his contract.
Well, looking at this team, Trevor Story is really their big name young guy. Mm-hmm. Nolan Arenado is another young guy. He had a really good season. Ian Desmond,
fantasy guy, by the way, Arenado.
Right, and Ian Desmond's kind of a hit or miss at this point. Charlie Blackmon looked like the old coming of a 21-year-old last season, and came out and was blasting home runs like they were out of style. And you know what? I think this team can be good. The starting rotation is really nothing at this point because everyone's afraid to pitch in Colorado. So we'll see.
They're also very young dependent when it comes to their pitching. At least that's what it was last year. They were going through like a bunch of minor leaguers.
So what are we saying? Are we saying a third place finish?
I would say third place finish, maybe around 500, maybe a little bit above.
Well, they were right around 500. They were 87 and 75.
Okay, so
I'm going to say probably somewhere like 85 wins sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm going to say that, and I'm actually going to bump my Arizona projection up. I'm going to say Arizona maybe at 88.
So I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say that the Rockies are gonna stay in third place.
So that brings us to the Dodgers. Oh my!
My good.
Good Lord. I mean, the Dodgers are just unlucky, I guess. Would you say so?
I guess so. No, Yu Darvish, and this may be very well there last year with Clayton Kershaw. This is they have to hit the win now button. They have to hit it so hard that it explodes.
The button falls off, basically.
Right.
So the only pieces that they brought in. Now I'm reading this off of USA Today, and I had to double check because I had to make sure. Wait, is that actually right? That sounds fake. But no, it's real. The only two pieces that they added so far are Tom Kohler and Matt Kemp. No,
Right,
you haven't traveled back in time. They traded for Matt Kemp.
Then Matt Kemp, listen to who they gave
The
up.
ghost of Matt Kemp.
They listen to what they gave up. Adrian Gonzalez, Charlie Culberson, Scott Kazmir, and Brandon McCarthy.
It was a salary dump. That's what they were doing. And I don't know how MLB and the Players Association allowed that trade, but excuse me, that this team didn't really improve. I mean, are they a great team as they stand? Of course they are. Bellinger is one of the top first basemen in the game, along with Goldschmidt. And Justin Turner is one of those guys that's going to really be great. He's a super utility guy. Corey Seager back being healthy again. Puig another year.
Chris Taylor, Jock Peterson.
They're a great team, but they got to figure out how to win in the postseason. And also, Clayton Kershaw's got to figure out how to win in the postseason.
Especially for him personally, considering his contract's going to come up. And, teams are going to want to invest in a pitcher. Well, he's going to get a payday regardless. He's going to get a ridiculous
his contract's not up. He's got an opt-out.
Well, it's assumed by most of us, by the three of us and in most of the media, that he will opt out for 2019.
If he has another crappy postseason, he might not opt out.
I mean, that's true, but still, I still think he will get
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, he will still get a payday regardless, I think, if he opts out just because of regular season numbers. But, I mean, for his postseason stuff, that might hurt him a little.
Of course. And you know what? I feel like this pitching rotation, even without Yu Darvish, is good, but they really need somebody else. Because as I'm looking at their rotation, Kershaw, Hill, Wood, Maheda, and Rue are their rotation of 5 at this point on the depth chart. And losing Yu Darvish, do I think it's a gigantic, colossal move? No, not 100%. Because Yu Darvish, even though he came in and pitched well, I think that he's not 100% the right guy to fit there.
I don't. This is the last hurrah. You have to do it, or at least try to do it this year. Otherwise, that window is going to slam, and it's going to slam directly onto your genitals. Still, because most of that core is intact, I have to pick them to win the division.
I think as much as they are going to, as much as they've suffered a little, they still are the favorite. I think the only team that can give them competition for that top spot is maybe Arizona. But I still see the Dodgers getting to 92, 93 wins.
Okay. I could see that too.
All right. So are we all in agreement then? Maybe 92, 93 wins, Dodgers will take the West?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, cool. I say let's not pick wild cards yet. Let's wait until we do look at the overall picture, because as much as I want to say Arizona or Colorado are a favorite right now, we have to look at the bigger picture for both leagues when it comes to the wild cards.
Okay.
So we'll do that once we get a little bit further into the preview.
Right. We'll do that like the last week when we're looking at the overall picture and looking at early predictions for the playoffs. But until then, guys, it's just great to have baseball back.
Oh, yeah. Just watching baseball for 6 to 8 hours a day. MLB Network going to be running their stuff. And you know what? Joe Girardi, if you want to mention that really quick, is now an analyst for MLB Network.
Yep. I'm very happy that he has joined on. It's going to make me watch MLB Network even more.
Well, yeah. I mean, all the guys, they have Al Leiter, Joe Girardi, Pedro Martinez. Just you can go on and on and on. So It's going to be great. And I think next week we're going to finish up the West, right?
Yeah, next week we're going to do the AL West. And one last thing I want to talk about, guys. Of course, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Just a brief mention. Winter Olympics have begun.
Yes, they have, and I was actually watching women's skiing. It's one of the preliminary events, and I always root for the Canadians because honestly, they come out of the womb knowing how to skate. Hey, welcome to life. Here's a pair of skis, eh?
Oh, guys, I can't wait for I think it's NBC Sports Network tonight of the night that we're recording it, going into Saturday.
Okay, I'm done.
At 2:15 tonight, guys. Curling! The USA competes in curling.
Wait a minute, 2:15 a.m.? Holy shit.
Because they're in South Korea.
I know, it's 13 hours difference from here. Holy shit.
Also, I got this report. I didn't see it because the opening ceremony won't air until tonight because of tape delay, but apparently the USA came out to Gangnam Style.
Yes, they did. And I saw it too.
Huh?
The USA came out to Gangnam Style for their...
I know what the song is, but I'm just saying, huh? What?
I guess you could say they were sighing.
And that's going to end this edition of the Unspoken Podcast. Go like us on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at the UDUP. Go like the Undetermined Podcast Network itself at the UD Network. Go like and follow the rest of the Undetermined Podcast Network accounts. That's going to do it. I'm Tom Albanno along with Nick Federa and Nick Morgerson. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports Production Party Undetermined Podcast Network. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.